What is up, Starseeds? I'm Sydalexandria, and today we are going to be talking about my astrology chart, my birth chart, because I have spent so much time looking at other people's that I've realized I really don't know the ins and outs of mine yet. Sure, I know like my sun, moon, rising for Western Vedic and Draconic. Sure, I know I have Sun, Mercury, and Venus in the third house. But if I'm being honest, that's about all that I remember of my birth chart. When I pulled it up, I was like, wow, kind of similar to my chart because like I see Sun, Mercury, and Venus in the third house. There's lots of Scorpio and Aquarius energy using the Western chart. But I wouldn't have known that this was my chart unless I knew that it was my chart. If I looked at the birth info, that's the only way that I would have been like, oh, hey, that's my chart. Because there's so many cool things about it, just looking at it, that I did not realize was in my chart. So that's why we're gonna go over it. People always ask me about my astrology, so I figured I would just do a video kind of going over the basics of it. This isn't gonna get super in-depth, but it's going to go over basically what I go over when I give a reading for people, just that initial basic astrology overview that I give people during readings at the beginning of the reading, so then I can learn a little bit more about them, about their personality, and that helps spark my intuition to uncover some past life information that my readings usually consist mostly of. So I have this new comfy chair. It's like not super soft, but like it's like a fuzzy inside of a fuzzy jacket type material. I have 2 ring lights going right now, which I've never done before. I've had 2 for over a year now. I've used one before, usually on this side, but I have 2 going right now, even though this one doesn't have a stand. She's just kind of chilling over here because maybe it helps the lighting. I have no clue. I'm not a good lighting, like audio, sound quality, like video quality, high pixel person. I don't know. If you like this lighting better than my other videos, let me know. Like, yeah, keep up the good lighting, Sid, because I can't tell what's good lighting and what's not good lighting. Maybe this is terrible. I have no idea. But let's get into the video. So, I'm going to be glancing at my computer because I do have like my Western, Vedic, and Draconic just pulled up on my laptop right here, and I will insert pictures as well so you guys can see what the heck I'm talking about. So we're going to be looking at my Western birth chart just to get this basic overview of the houses, because I look at where the planets are in the houses way more than I pay attention to the zodiac signs. Yes, it's super cool to get into the zodiac signs, but when I'm giving a reading to somebody, I tend to say, oh yeah, you know, your sun's in this zodiac sign for this form of astrology. But if you look at Vedic, it shifts back to the sign before that. And then if you look at Draconic, then it might be totally different. So that's why we're not going to pay too much attention to the zodiac signs to avoid confusion today. We're going to be talking about the houses. So I also have my astrology report document pulled up here because there's some asteroids that I like to look at that I cannot look at all at the same time on the website. That's my favorite website anymore. We're just gonna go house by house, I guess, but also talk about the things that I notice first. So the things that I notice first, I look at like the 4 main access points of the chart. I notice my midheaven, there is Vesta in retrograde, conjunct my midheaven in the 9th house. So what does this mean? And it's also in Gemini using Western astrology, and in Taurus using Vedic, and it's in Pisces using Draconic, which I never would have guessed using Draconic astrology. My midheaven is in Pisces, my descendant is in Sag. I knew my ascendant was in Gemini, so therefore my descendant's in Sag, but it just didn't click. So anyways, I have Vesta conjunct my midheaven, and that is like literally such a cool placement to have. I didn't realize that I have that in my chart. When I give readings for people and I see this pretty rarely, I'm like, holy guacamole, like you're a fighter. You're someone who keeps going. Like you're someone who your destiny is to just keep going. Even though like my Vesta's in retrograde, so it like sometimes I don't even know what the heck I keep going for. There's times where I question it. Like when I was younger, there's times where I was like depressed, in a depressed mood. but I kept going for some reason. And I just am like a very driven person. I keep going. What keeps me going is my destined career. Like that truly is what keeps me going. I want to achieve things. And I wouldn't even call it really a career. I guess I would. I don't know. But there's things that I want to accomplish in my life. I want to host wellness retreats around the world. Sure, I want to travel the world, but it's because I want to like reach more people. I want to have one-on-one conversations with people. I want to help people in any way that I can. I have all of these big dreams. When I was younger, I wanted to be a rock star. I wanted to be a veterinarian. I wanted to have like my own clothing store, my own furniture store, my own everything store. I just wanted to do everything my own way, which sounds so egotistical, but it was really just because of this like creative entrepreneur in me. I've always had this creative entrepreneur like driving force within me. So the fact that what keeps me going is like my destined career just makes a lot of sense, I guess. Okay. So the other thing I noticed right off the bat is my Lilith is conjunct my descendant. And this explains a lot because I'm always questioning like, am I sure that I wasn't born during a Venus retrograde? Like, are we sure that I don't hang on to relationships from the past and stuff like that? And then I look at my descendant. There's the answer. It's a different placement, says very similar things, okay? So Lilith is your hidden desires, okay? And your descendant is, it can be the traits you admire in other people, because ascendant in astrology is you. Descendant in astrology is other people in your life. It's the traits you admire in others, desire more of in yourself, but mainly, above all, it's your like destined spouse in this life, okay? Sure, it's about all relationships, but especially romantic. So my hidden desires is romantic relationships. I am a hopeful romantic, I like to say. So let's get into my first house because we do have some stuff going on and we're going to check my astrology report document to see too. So I have Psyche, Cheriklo, Humea, and Make in my first house. So the fact that Cheriklo is there is really sweet, and the fact that I have Cheriklo in the first house mixed with Vesta conjunct my MC is like really cool, and I didn't realize that was in my chart, and I'm really happy that I looked at this now because Cheriklo is such a sweet asteroid. It's caring for gifted outcasts, okay? That's the best way to put it. I love phrasing it that way. It's caring for people who are like outcasts, but who you're like, wow, they're talented. There's a spark there. And that's just like a big part of me, I feel like, is caring for gifted outcasts. And I know a bunch of people have that energy as well. And like we all have Cheriklo somewhere in our chart. But for me, it's in the first house. And the first house is like a big part of my personality. And I'm a weirdo. And I love other weirdos. And I love helping other weirdos who are in need of help. So that's a big part of me. Okay, and then I also have Psyche in the first house, and Psyche is like your emotional turn-ons, kind of, is how I phrase it sometimes. That's in my first house. So I'm someone who maybe turns on people emotionally a lot. People like my mind, I guess. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. Sexy brain, I guess you could say. And I have Humea in my first house, and Humea is basically an asteroid about spirituality. So spirituality, yeah, it's a big part of my life. It's in my first house, okay. And then Make is the asteroid about overcoming natural disasters especially, and I have this prepper survivalist energy about me, this, always preparing for something to happen, whether it be having bug out bags for like a potential apocalypse, or just in any given situation when someone rings my doorbell, I have my car keys in my hand and I'm ready to run out the back door. That's me. Okay, so there's lots going on in the third house, so we are going to jump to the third house because this is how I do it when I give readings for people. I just kind of go in the order that I see stuff. So the third house, we have lots happening. I said I have Sun, Mercury, Venus there, as well as Eros and Pholus. So Sun in the third house, I'm an expressive person. This is interesting because I am expressive, but I'm also not. But people see me as just kind of out there, kind of like and the third house is also pretty friendly. It's the house of peers. So people see me as kind of like a very expressive, friendly person most of the time, hopefully. And my my Mercury is there, so I like to talk because the third house is about communication. When your Mercury's in the third house, you like to chat it up, okay? And I have my Venus there as well, so I'm very expressive in relationships. I really like to talk to my partner. I like a partner that will talk back to me. I'm very contradictory in like terms of expression and communicating because you guys know me on YouTube, so you probably think I'm a very talkative person. And I am when I can talk about the things that I'm passionate about. And I mean, this is all in Scorpio using Western astrology. It's in Scorpio, and my Mercury and my Venus are in Libra using Vedic astrology. So, I mean, that kind of backs up the fact that, like, I like to talk about stuff that I'm passionate about, that I have a fixed view on for Scorpio. But I like to talk about it with my friends and my family. In Libra, I'm surprised. Maybe when I'm older, I'm going to be even more vocal, but really, I'm very, very shy if you see me in person, unless I'm in like a comfortable situation. It also just depends on the day. Some days I feel way more talkative than others, but usually if you see me out in public, I'm going to be extremely shy and not say anything. But if someone mentions something about astrology or aliens or eco-friendliness or survival skills or overthrowing the government or like some holistic medicine or something that I think is cool, then I'm going to chat it up for sure. And then with Eros in the third house, Eros is the asteroid about physical turn-ons. So I can be very physically expressive sometimes. This is TMI, we don't need to get into this. And now that I'm a mom, I feel like I've kind of shut all that down, but when I was younger, I can see it. Also having Pholus in the third house. Pholus is the asteroid about sudden spiritual awakening. So the fact that it's in my third house is interesting. And if I just like go back to when I went through my sudden spiritual awakening, I mean, I've always been spiritual. That's why like I have Humea in the first house. But my sudden spiritual awakening was the end of my junior year of high school and then the summer after when I was 16 years old. And what was happening at that time, I was surrounded by friends that were peers. I wouldn't exactly say it was community, like 11th house energy. I would say it was more so third house energy that was happening during that time because it was friends and peers, not necessarily a community though, okay? So the fact that Pholus is in the third house, I mean, I couldn't have picked a better house for it to be in, honestly. So, does make sense. Let's talk about the sixth house because that's where my moon is, and my moon is conjunct my Uranus, and then I also have Mars pretty close as well. So moon conjunct Uranus, I'm a freaking weirdo when I'm alone. That's what that means basically. Like, my emotions are they're unique for sure, and you know, they're very deep because Uranus is a far out there planet. Like Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, they're more so unconscious energies, and the fact that my moon is conjunct one of those more outer planets, I am able to tap into that subconscious energy more for sure because Uranus, it's not as far out there as Neptune and Pluto. So Uranus is more subconscious, can get into the unconscious. But so I can tap into that easier because the moon is all about intuition as well, right? So I can tap into that subconscious, sometimes unconscious energy really easily. And then it being in my sixth house, the sixth house is all about service. So honestly, like, I use my intuition as service to other people. That's what the sixth house is about, really. Service to other people. It can be about health and stuff, but really it's like I use my intuition to serve other people. That is like a telltale sign of being like a psychic or something like that, is having moon in the sixth house. And then my Mars is in the sixth house as well, and Mars is about taking action. So not only am I giving service to others through my emotions and my intuition, but I'm also physically servicing others as well. I just didn't realize this was my freaking chart, you guys. This is actually really cool and amazing. And then also I have vertex in my sixth house as well. And the vertex is about once again, kind of your turning point in life. It's not about necessarily your spirituality, sudden spiritual awakening, but it's just about your turning point in life in general. And it's in the 6th house. So once I really start serving others, that's when my life changes. And I feel like I used to serve others a lot when I was younger, but not on the level that I've always wanted to. So I feel like in the future, once I can really do that even more, my life is going to change. But even now that I've been giving readings on more of a regular basis, my life is changing. And it's in that service to others realm that I'm like, wow, my life is this is a turning point, you know? Hygeia is also in my 6th house, and Hygeia is the asteroid about health. The fact that I have the asteroid about your attitude towards health in the 6th house, which is the house of service to others and health, it makes me think there's some kind of theme around health in my life, and like it could be positive or negative. So right now we're going to call it neutral. Not exactly sure what that's about yet, but I am very interested in holistic medicine, natural holistic healthcare methods. I love helping people with that. So we said Lilith was conjunct my descendant. It's also the only thing in my 7th house, basically the same meaning there. The 7th house is all about your partner and traits you admire in others. So I have my Chiron conjunct my south node in the 4th house. Wow. So I look at the IC for recent past lives. There's not anything conjunct my IC. Vesta is opposite it, obviously, but there's nothing conjunct my IC. The IC tells you about past lives because the MC tells you about your future in this life and your destiny. So there's nothing really happening with my IC, but so because of that, I would look at Chiron and the south node. Also the 4th house in general. The fact that Chiron is conjunct my south node in the 4th house says a lot. Basically, what I come from in past lives is really strong. And it's really strong in this specific degree of my chart. And so this, using Western astrology, is 27 degrees of Sagittarius. And I believe that's actually where the galactic center is in astrology. Using Western astrology, I believe it's like 27 degrees Sagittarius, and using Vedic astrology, I believe it's like 2 degrees. So let's see where Chiron and my south node are using Vedic astrology. Yeah, they're 3 degrees Sagittarius using Vedic astrology. So that is conjunct the galactic center, the center of our Milky Way galaxy. So that's actually really cool. Once again, I can't believe this is my chart. This is one of those charts that if I was giving a reading to somebody, I would be like, wow, this is amazing, but it's my chart. And the fact that it's in my 4th house of comfortability, I feel like this means that I am really at peace with these past lives. There is a very deep connection to them though, because the fact that Chiron and South Node are conjunct, it's saying, hey, look at me. Especially since it's sitting in this special degree of Sagittarius, it's like, yeah, look at this as well. So I'm someone who is very comfortable with their past in this life and in other lives. And it's something that I don't mind, looking back on and reminiscing about, because it's in the 4th house of home and family and comfortability and ancestors. My past is something that I'm very much so at peace with and I'm very at home with usually. Okay, the fact that Pluto is also in my 4th house means that I'm someone who wants to transform my family for the better, my family line, my home. I want a dream home. Home is very important to me, and I probably am into renovating homes. And I do enjoy that, so this is cool. Also, Pallas being in the 4th house means that my thought process revolves mainly around the ones that are closest to me, my family, my home life. Whenever I'm thinking of something, I do think of how it is going to affect my family and my home, and that is true. Because we're going in order of relevance of what attracts my eye to it most in my chart, we are going to talk about my 10th house next, and this kind of makes sense because we just talked about the South Node, so now we're going to be talking about my North Node and part of fortune in my 10th house, as well as Saturn being in retrograde in my 10th house. Ooh, I have Saturn in my 10th house? Okay. So off the top of my head, I do know that I have Saturn and Jupiter in retrograde, but I didn't remember that Saturn was in my 10th house, and Saturn is the planet of duty, responsibility. The 10th house is about career, so I am a hard worker. The fact that I have Saturn in retrograde in the 10th, I have North Node in the 10th, I have part of Fortune in the 10th, and I have Vesta in retrograde conjunct my MC in the 9th. Wow. I am a workaholic, and I mean, I really am. I'm someone who I do not go out and party. I do not sit around watching TV shows unless there's like not much else I can do at that time. At 16 and 17, before I had a kid, what was I doing during my free time? I was watching spiritual YouTube videos, and I was learning all about astrology that I could, all about ancient civilizations that I could, and I planned on using that to build a career. I have so many different projects going right now. I have different oracle card decks and tarot as well that I have planned some of on my computer. I have planned my dream home, like how we're talking about Pluto in the 4th. I've been writing a book. I've been preparing these courses that I'm going to teach over Zoom. In a couple weeks, I have an astrology course. That's the first one, and then ET races, and then intuition divination, and then probably sustainability, self-sufficiency, eco-friendliness, holistic medicine. I am someone who is very much so all about my career. My career is very fun though. Seeing this chart, I might think that this person is just like a workaholic. Could be 9 to 5 if it was a very like kind of spiritual 9 to 5, if that makes sense. Like this chart could be the chart of a yoga teacher. This chart could be the chart of a like family constellation worker. This chart could be the chart of a therapist who infuses kind of more natural physical therapies mixed with emotional therapies. Like if I had a 9 to 5 job, whoever's chart this is, it would be a job something like that, probably. Something that you could use your intuition in a bit, and something that actually really helps other people. It could be working with animals, to be honest. It could be working with just like people in general, maybe people with disabilities, helping older people, younger people, babies. I guess it could be a daycare worker, honestly, and that's like my day job. But it could be pretty much anyone who uses their intuition in their job. But it is someone who's a workaholic. And then to know that that's me, it's like, oh shit. So let's talk about the 9th house real quick, because I said I had Vesta in the 9th. I also have Sedna in the 9th. And Sedna is about how you see the bigger picture. And the 9th house is about other cultures. It's about philosophy. It's about that wild adventure side. Sure, it can be about travel, but really I like to call it other cultures and philosophy. So Sedna, how we see the bigger picture, my Sedna is also in retrograde. And when things are in retrograde, it means the energy of that planet or asteroid or point in your chart is more important to you, but you don't always fulfill it to the extent that you want to, okay? So I have Jupiter in retrograde, Saturn in retrograde, Lilith in retrograde, Vesta in retrograde, and Sedna in retrograde. And those 5 things are like planets and asteroids that are very important to me and that speak a lot to me. So that is really cool that the ones that I've always felt more of a deeper connection to, those are the ones in retrograde. So Sedna and how we see the bigger picture. I see the bigger picture based on other cultures. In the 9th house, how big do you see the picture? If your Sedna is in the 9th house, you see the picture very large, okay? Like if Sedna was in, let's say, the 2nd house, you see the bigger picture in more of a business sense. If Sedna was in the 1st house, you see a pretty small picture based around yourself. If Sedna was in the 7th house, then you would see the bigger picture based on all of these other people around you. If Sedna was in the 11th house, you see it based on your community. If Sedna was in the 3rd house, you see it based on you and your peers. You don't necessarily take in these other generations into accountability if your Sedna was in the 3rd house. But so Sedna in the 9th house, you see, you know, these other cultures' perspectives. You see the worldly perspective. It's a pretty big picture. Okay, let's talk about the 11th house. I have Jupiter in retrograde in the 11th house, and that's the only thing. And I love 11th house energy. I love Jupiter energy. I did not know that my Jupiter was in the 11th house, but my philosophy, it revolves around community. And really what I'm always thinking about is these self-sufficient communities that I want to create with neighbors. I want you guys to be my neighbors. I want to live in these cute 3D printed houses in sacred geometric shapes made with sustainable materials, and I want to have community centers and all of this cool stuff. I want to have a big garden for us to share. Like, I want us to have wild cats and dogs running around and we feed them. That's good morals. That's loyalty. That's, and like, I am that. Even though I don't want to say I don't have very many friends, but to be honest, like, I don't hang out with anybody. Like, I don't have very many close friends. I feel like I'm nobody else's best friend except my son, and that's totally okay. But regardless, I still have these deep emotional connections to these people that I used to hang out with, and these people that I've never met in person as well, but I'm so excited to hang out with. So my philosophy really does revolve around other people. And my blessings, because Jupiter is also about blessings, is in the 11th house. So I am blessed with this community of people. So that's a cool placement to have, and I feel like the older I get, the more that one will make sense. I guess let's talk about the 12th house real quick. So the 12th house is this unconscious energy, and I have Juno and Sappho in my 12th house. So Sappho is an asteroid about kind of like sensuality. I don't look at it too much, but it's in my 12th house, which is interesting. Also, Juno is in my 12th house, which is great. Kind of embarrassing, but Juno is the asteroid about boundaries in relationships and your views on marriage. The 12th house is unconscious energy. I have trouble creating boundaries in relationships. I have trouble setting a price on the readings that I give. And I have trouble placing boundaries in especially romantic relationships, as well as friendships, as well as work relationships. If Juno was in like the first house, then I would be a stickler on that. But it's in the 12th house, and I don't really know how to do that very well. I have no celestial bodies in the second house, actually. My second house in Western astrology starts in Libra, and the end of it is in Scorpio. And using Vedic astrology, it starts in Virgo, the rest of it is in Libra. So, even though there's no major planets there, there are other asteroids in my second house, obviously. And like there's a zodiac sign that rules it. So no house is ever empty. There's just no major celestial bodies there. So that just means my energy I have placed in other aspects of life, and I'm really not too worried about money, finances, or business relationships or trading. There's not a ton of stuff going on in my 8th house. I have the asteroid Eris, which I like to describe as Mars's little sister. And I believe in mythology, Eris actually is Mars's sister. Not sure if she's a little sister or an older sister, but it's that feminine, aggressive energy, and it's in my 8th house. So I get very fired up about things that people don't usually talk about. The 8th house is deep stuff people don't talk about. My feminine aggression is kind of deep down there, but that is something that I'm passionate about. The 8th house is about how you transform. The 8th house is about astrology and conspiracy theories and the occult and death and things that you don't talk about at the dinner table. So my Eris is there, and that means that like I get fired up. I'm very passionate about things that people don't usually talk about, which is true. What is something that will make me aggressive is things that people don't usually talk about. The last house we have to talk about is the 5th house, last but definitely not least. So in the 5th house, I have Neptune and the asteroid Ceres. So the asteroid Ceres is about how you nurture, how you are as a parent, and then Neptune is about more of this unconscious energy and our dreams. The 5th house, I like to describe as the house of the inner child. It's your learning style. Do you have to do something to learn how to do it? Are you an auditory learner, a visual learner? And it's also like the house of creativity, but mainly inner child, okay? And so Ceres being in the 5th house, like I want to parent my son, my future kids, question mark. Like I am as a parent very childlike in my own way. Like I love getting to do blocks with my son. I will build a block tower, let me add it. I will color a picture, let me add it. Like I will do that too. Like if we go to the trampoline park, I'm jumping too. If we go to the playground, I'm going on the slide too. That's just how I am. I'm a friendly parent. I am a creative parent. I love doing art projects. And how I nurture people is relating to my own experiences a lot of the times too. There's been so many times where I was like, yeah, when I was a kid, And I feel like that's also just in general how I talk is like relatability. And I feel like some people love that. I love when people relate stuff back to like their stories. Some people don't like that. Sorry if you've ever talked to me if you're like that, because I've probably done it to you. And then Neptune being in the 5th house is more this unconscious energy. So I am really kind of tuned into like my inner child. And so it's actually really important for me to do those childlike things. Because it brings me to a sense of my spirituality even as well, because Neptune is very spiritual too. And then I also have dreams relating back to my inner child probably, and I do. So that is all of this like basic astrology rundown, and I do want to do another video getting more in depth into other cultures' forms of astrology and what I have in these other astrological systems, but that is basically the overview that I give to people who get a reading from me. Let's just go over the zodiac signs real quick. So using Western astrology, my big 3 is I'm a Sag/Scorpio sun sign. I was born literally the minute the sun moved from Scorpio to Sagittarius. So using this online calculator, it says that I am 29 degrees 59 minutes Scorpio sun sign, but using some other calculators, I am 0 degrees 0 minutes Sagittarius sun. So Sag Scorp sun, Aquarius moon, and Virgo rising for Western. Using Vedic astrology, I am definitely a Scorpio sun, Capricorn moon, and Leo rising. And using Draconic astrology, I am a Virgo sun, Scorpio moon, and Gemini rising. If you would like a reading with me, please email me, sydalexandriaegypt@gmail.com. We will go over this stuff and then also literally so much more. This is just like the beginning of the reading that I do that takes maybe half an hour, and then usually we get into lots of past lives that takes about an hour, and then questions and any topics and chit chat that probably takes another half hour. My readings are usually about 2 hours, give or take. Sometimes they're only an hour if that's how long it has to last. I take out 3 hours time frame for the readings in case it takes that long, but usually it takes about 2 hours, and then I like to have some wiggle room to like eat lunch and prepare for like my next reading or prepare for my courses if I'm going straight into a course after reading. So yeah, and if you guys are interested in my courses and you want to learn what the heck this means, learn how to understand and read a birth chart like this and get into so much more, like I said, this was just the basic first off, like just looking at it, but we didn't even get into any aspects. We didn't get into nakshatras, we didn't get into divisional charts, we didn't get into decans and dewads, we didn't even get into like the elements and modalities. So this was just, once again, very basic, no fixed star, no galactic stuff we talked about yet, but I would love to talk about that more in the future and in my courses that I'm going to teach. Peace out.